I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, and I am thrilled to be joined with the incredible Aminah Nieves, who plays Teonna Rainwater in the Paramount Plus drama series 1923. Welcome, Aminah.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We have so much to discuss, so I think we should get straight to it. I loved this show, and I must say honestly that the highlight for me was Teonna's story, because it's something that, I wasn't too familiar with, and I really wanted to know more about it. That was one aspect, but what really hooked me was your performance as this woman who experiences profound and devastating spiritual, physical, and obviously emotional trauma. So how did you bring that emotional depth to your character to life so you could bring some authenticity to it?
Yeah, I think for me, and honestly, I think for a lot of BIPOC communities in general, these traumas, right, they're carried through wounds. So, I'm experiencing not only what I'm feeling, Aminah, I'm experiencing what my mother has went through. I'm experiencing with my grandmother, my great grandmother. So I have all this in my body. And it's interesting. You're like, sometimes I think with acting, you're like, well, how am I going to conjure this up? It's so grand. So how are we going to make it work? But it was almost instant, and it hurt every time, and you kind of have to figure out ways to move around that and ways to come back down from accessing those traumas and that emotion. But when you feel it, you feel it. And that's something that I couldn't, it just came, and I can't explain it. I tell my dad often that I would feel people move in and out of me. Like sometimes I wasn't even in control of my body. And so I would be talking to myself while words for the show was coming out. And I'd be like, all right, Aminah, this isn't you. Someone else is coming through you. So just let them do what they're here to do and move forward. And that happened so many times during filming. And I don't know, it was wild. It was wild.
Yeah, you hear often about generational trauma and what you carry with you in your DNA, but then when you actually have to do it on camera, on set, with a whole bunch of people around you in costume and you've rehearsed and whatever, I'm wondering whether you were surprised that you were able to tap into something very raw and very high energy. Like there are moments where Teonna really lashes out in retribution, and I'm like, yes. But that's just me as the viewer. What were you feeling? Were you surprised
that I was able to go there?
Yeah.
Yes and no. I think I myself, as Aminah, I've always been a very expressive person, and I've always been able to feel what a lot of people feel without them telling me. So no, is that crazy to say? Is that like, well, I don't know. I mean, there was obviously times when we were filming where they just want to like say a run through of something, but I've quickly realized that Aminah doesn't do run throughs. Aminah's one, she's 100. If you tell her to go 50, I'm gonna go 100. So that was surprising sometimes, body wise, of like how it's always 100 for me, which is weird.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's how you learn something about yourself on every project, and I think that's something you're going to carry with you forever. Let's talk about the subject matter of Teonna's story, because the forced assimilation of Indigenous people in American history, is not often portrayed on screen. And if it ever is, it's really the justice isn't done to it. What about the story did you feel was most important to convey to the audience?
I think with this show specifically, the most important thing to convey was that every single thing that you see in 1923 happened. And there was a lot in the show. There was a lot that happened that wasn't in the show. And I think some people still, like my sister tells me, because she's she's on all the sites. People don't believe that this is actually what happened to Indigenous peoples on Turtle Island. So just, I think it was my duty to convey that this is exactly what has happened, and we left out so much more. But if this has sparked any interest in someone to do research, like, thank God, right? Because BIPOC communities in general, I think, are often overlooked, and a lot of what has happened to our people goes under the rug, which is very disappointing. But because it goes under the rug, I think it does a lot of damage on our youth and as on our people in general, you know, because they always, we're always moving through not feeling, I don't want to say always, but I think it could be hard for us to kind of feel prideful sometimes in who we are, because we were forced to be someone we weren't for so long.
Yeah, it's so true.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
It absolutely did. When auditioning for the role, I heard that you learned how to speak Crow, and you even sent in your audition tape with you speaking that language. Now that's commitment. Can you elaborate on that process, and why was it important for you to be so fluent in the language before even being cast?
Man, that was wild. We did it, I think, 4 times in Apasalage, which is Crow. It's so important. I think Michael Spears, actually, who plays my dad on the show, or Teonna's dad on the show, he told me a fact, and he said, Apasalage people have some of the most highest keepers of their language, which is 80%. So when you think about that, it's like, that's a lot. Then you like go deeper and you think that's a lot of youth, like that's a lot of babies. 80% is a very high number. So for me, I wanted to just do it as best as I could, because when those babies watch that, even if a snip and they hear their language, maybe that'll, when they grow up, they'll feel comfortable and they won't be scared to speak their tongue. And so many of our Indigenous languages across Turtle Island and beyond, you know, across the entire globe, have become, I don't want to say extinct, but they've become forgotten in a sense. We don't remember them as fluidly as we should, or as we could. So it's important. Our language, our food, and our medicine, those are 3 very important things that make us who we are. Yeah.
It's so cool. It's just so cool that we're getting to see more representation of people from Indigenous communities in the United States and, of course, around the world. It makes me so happy. I get to learn about the various ancient cultures of the land that I live on and raise a family on. What does it actually mean to you personally then? You know, how does that resonate with you? I mean, it's an obvious question, but I'd love to hear from you what it means to you.
What it means to share our stories here.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I want to do. I think that's why I act. I not only want to share our stories, but I want to just share all beings' stories. And it's emotional. I think it's an emotional roller coaster too, you know, when you don't feel like you've been represented on television, you know, kind of your whole life, and then you go to being in a big show and being a representation for your, you know, for your community, for my nieces, you know, my nephews. It's so important, and it's very emotional. And I mean, I'm still in awe every single day. I'm like, what's going on? Like, but it's a time, right? You know, I think it's time for Indigenous communities, for BIPOC communities, hands down, to be represented. This planet, you know, it runs by Indigenous wisdom and Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous stories. So why not celebrate it? It's so easy to celebrate something so beautiful and something that is full of love, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And to do so with people from similar cultures and without appropriating it and um, without marginalizing it. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Let's talk more about the actual show itself. You've spoken before how close you are with your scene partners, which include Lena, Jennifer, and Sebastian. What went into creating that dynamic on set and that safety so that you could all rely on each other?
Mhm. I actually met Lena when we were both in Jackson Hole auditioning for Teonna. So I previously knew Lena, and I was so excited when I found out she was playing Babasti. I immediately called her and I was like, girl, we were like going off. So we already kind of cultivated something before we even got to Montana, because it was very important for me to kind of just, bring her in, because she came in late too. She didn't experience cowboy camp with the rest of the cast. So I wanted her to feel at home and I wanted her to feel safe.
Yeah.
And we did just that. And with Sebastian and Jennifer and Carrie, I mean, they came in with so much love, and we would chat and we would have dinners and make sure everyone was on the same page. But then if you meet them, they're so easy to love, and they're some of the nicest human beings possible or ever. So I think what made it work was that we were so open to one another, and we wanted to know more about each other. And we just loved, we laughed, we loved. And I think that's what kept it going. We had safe words. We were just friends. Like, we would go play on the swings together, like Jennifer, Sebastian, myself. Like, we would just love. I don't know.
Wow. Also, it's interesting to me because as as a viewer, I feel connected to the characters in certain ways. I watch them subjectively. I take in what's happening on screen, and for me, Jennifer and Sebastian in particular was just ferocious and almost evil. And so I'm just curious, what kind of conversations are you typically having on set, for example, with Jennifer, before you're about to launch in on something very, very unsettling that you have to do and that we have to watch?
Oh yeah, Jennifer and I, we were always by each other's side whenever we were had a scenes together, and kind of in general. But during the days where we were on set, we didn't do much conversations around it. And that went kind of as a whole with Sebastian and Lena as well. We just were all there hugging one another, and we kind of gather in a circle and just sit in silence, but just like feel one another. And then if we're doing very, the I guess I don't want to say killing, but the killing scene is for instance, with Teonna and Sister Mary, we did have safe words, and we did kind of have just like a 5-second chat of like what we're comfortable with, what we weren't comfortable with, and the before the scene cry, just to get it out, and definitely the after the scene bawl. But we didn't like to talk a lot about it when we were on set. I think it was just kind of too much. We just wanted to be there for one another more than anything else.
Wow. Am I right in suggesting that you're going to take this experience away with you for a very long time, and what you've learned about yourself and the craft, but also just about yourself as a person?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. I'm surrounded by so many incredible human beings and gifted actors and artists. And also, it's exactly what you said. I'm learning so much about myself every step of the way. I feel like I've grown 10 years,
Yeah.
you find out so much about yourself with anything, but especially circumstances and experiences like this. I'll never forget it, and I'm so grateful for it. It's been a wild ride, but I'm in love with it every step of the way.
So you mentioned Cowboy Camp. So that was before shooting with the rest of the cast, including Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford. Like I don't think you can find two bigger superstars in acting. What was that experience like? And were you excited to be around such icons?
Yeah, it's wild, because I'm gonna let you know a little secret about me, which probably isn't the best. but I don't really know like celebrities. so
Yeah, good.
so yeah, it's not like yeah, so everyone else was freaking out around me, and I'm just like, oh, these two people are dope. Like, that's cool. Like, I know kind of like Googled. So I was like, okay, this is what they've done. Great. Like, they're incredible. But I was pretty cool as a cucumber, I hope. Uh, it was still awesome. I went on set a lot. Actually, I think I went on set pretty much every day that I wasn't filming. Because you're around all these icons, you know, Timothy Dalton, Jerome Flynn, Harrison, Helen, and they've paved so much, you know, through acting. So to learn and to watch them between scenes and how they are in character and watching them walk off is an incredible tool to have. Cowboy camp is crazy because you're watching these elders just like get up and off like butter. And while I'm over here like crying because my legs hurt so bad. But but it was great. It was I'll never forget it.
I just love how on Taylor Sheridan shows, in the Sheridan verse, like everyone goes like full ball. Like, yeah, we're going to do a cowboy camp. We're going to put you through the paces.
Yeah.
What did you think about that? Like, that's, you could have just turned up, done your lines, done a bit of a cry, and we're done here. But no, you guys had to go at 110%.
Oh yeah. But you know what? I think that's why it makes the show what it is, because we created a family from day one. Because you're not going to hate someone who watched you kind of, you know, gain welts on your butt from trying to ride a horse from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. You know what I'm saying? Like, we went through absolute hell together. And I think that's why the show works, because we're in a literal family. Like, I can call any person from the show, you know, up at any moment and they will be there for me, and vice versa. It created bonds like no other. And honestly, I think a lot of shows should do that more often because I think it'll just create a safe space for everyone to be authentic, you know?
Yeah, totally. I agree. I think it's a great idea. Two consultants, Mo Brings Plenty and Bertie Realbird, advised on the storyline and the show overall. Talk me through working with them.
Bertie Realbird and Mo Brings Plenty are indescribable. It was an incredible experience to be working alongside them, not only as just Aminah and Teonna, but honestly as family. I think the key word in this interview apparently is family, you know?
Right?
But it's so true. I mean, they were there every single step of the way. They were there before we got to Montana, and still there today, you know, now. They make sure everything is completely perfect. And it's very important because you don't want to step on a set and feel like something's off, especially with Indigenous cultures and how we're represented. So having them there and watching their minds move in this very beautiful, specific dance was incredible. And yeah, I could say so much, but I've been tangenting this whole time with you. I don't want
I
to pull
love
up
it.
on
And
a 5 minute
I'm
tangent.
enraptured. It's some great insight because yeah, I know a lot of people who have seen the show and it's really resonated with them for various reasons. I just found the story so compelling. Everything it seems that Taylor Sheridan does, it's like he's writing it for me. It's so weird. I can't really put it into words, and I hear this a lot. He's just a very empathetic writer and filmmaker. And I'm curious now that you're part of the Sheridan verse. What did you most value about him as a creator working with him?
I think he didn't hold back. Taylor doesn't hold back. And I think that's very important, not only for our story, but I even think for the Dutton story. He doesn't, in his words, he doesn't give a fuck, but in the best way, you know? so many, it could be scary to tell full truths, but his ability to tell it to the capacity that he did is very commendable and with honor. And he just does it every time, and he also gives us the space to explore ourselves, which I think is very important. And that's what he seeks throughout every character he writes, and every person that he casts for those specific characters. He gives us space to find who exactly we are first. And I couldn't ask for anyone better to help with that.
Yeah. When I'm thinking about takeaways from the series, for me, it was that I was exposed to such indecency and cruelty on screen, but what I really held on to was Teonna's resilience, her strength, and knowing that given her last name, there's going to be some very exciting and familial link with the Rainwaters. So that's what I took away from her story. I'd like, what do you want audiences though to take away from her story and this first season at large?
At large, simple and sweet. We're still here, and we are the seeds that our ancestors have planted, and we're growing, and we're not stopping. And I think that goes as a whole for the entire series and the Yellowstone universe too.
I love that. It's so true. Without these folks, we don't get to watch Beth Dutton screaming at her brother on the main ship, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So the show's been picked up for a second season, thank God. Without, obviously we can't give anything away, but what do you think's in store for Teonna going forward?
Oh man. I mean, I want her to see her child, like not to see her childhood, but to get to experience what it feels like to be a child again. Obviously that's most likely not what's gonna happen. So if I'm speaking in real life terms, I would like to see her kind of meet the Duttons at some point, because I think she kind of has to, because Brian knows her dad, or the Brian Garrity who plays Zane knows her dad. So I think that would be very interesting if she somehow made her way to the ranch and to see that dynamic happen.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. That's, I think, what a lot of viewers are hoping for.
Mhm.
And so given all the spiritual and emotional and physical journey that Teonna goes through over the season, do you feel that there's more room for growth for her going forward? Like, where do you think she's at in her head now that she's on the run and she's escaped these vicious monsters from the convent, but yet she's now in the wilderness? I mean, maybe it's even worse for her.
Honestly, I think this is probably one of the first times where Teonna is actually experiencing a little airiness, a little. She's feeling more held than she has in years. She's been away for about 5 years at this point. She's been without any real human touch that wants goodness for her for 5 years. She's with her dad, and now she's with someone who is a part of Hank, who she looks up to as well. So I think for Teonna, it's a little, she's having a moment and she's having a dance right now, but in the back of her mind, she does know that she has to still harness that that protector energy within her. I think I'm going off topic now, because now I'm like really getting meta and thinking about Teonna and like
I love it.
I'm
It's
so
so
sorry. There was no ending to
no,
that.
it's like, it's so common when I speak to performers, writers, even, like they start to take ownership over that character, and you're going to carry Teonna with you forever, whether you like it or not. And yeah, and I think that's a real testament, Aminah, to your performance. I found it so unsettling, but also so beautiful to watch, and I think you should be super, super proud of your performance. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Everybody watching, don't forget you can catch season 1 of 1923, which is available to stream exclusively on Paramount Plus. And again, everyone, please join me in congratulating Aminah on the performance of her career to date.
Thank you.